All right, let's do our summary on the quadratic unit and start some problem solving. This diagram we've seen a lot of in this unit. We've talked about the quadratic forms and the purposes of each form. The vertex form, what's nice about it is we could easily find the vertex, which is h and k. We are also able to find the axis of symmetry easily because we know that h is equal to h. When we get to standard form, we go to standard form by expanding. Same as going from factored to standard, we're going to expand. Standard form is probably the most versatile form that we have because using standard form, we can find a lot of information. First of all, the C will give me the y-intercept right away. We know that the y-intercept always has an x-coordinate of 0 and C as the y-intercept. Now, you can also find the x-intercept and the vertex from the standard form. So for example, if we want to find the x-intercept, all we need to do is to use the quadratic formula. Now, if we wanted to find the vertex, it would be the same as us trying to go back to vertex form. There's two equations that are useful. If I use h is equal to negative b over 2a, this gives us the axis of symmetry of the parabola. And of course, once we have the axis of symmetry, we know that h is the same h in the x-axis of the vertex. A second way for us to go back to vertex form is to use the method of completing the square. So from the vertex form, we're able to find from standard form, we're also able to find the vertex by using one of these two methods. Okay, from standard form into factored form, we would have to factor. And factored form is great because it helps us find our x-intercept easily. Once we're able to solve where y is equal to 0, then our x-intercepts will be the coordinates of r and 0 and s and 0, where r and s is a constant. For us to go from factored form to vertex form, we use the midpoint equation. We know the midpoint is equal to the x-intercepts added together and then divided by 2. Now throughout all of this, we have a, and a is the same in all the forms. Let's review the critical points. We have two x-intercepts in this case. Now, it is possible for us to have 2, it's possible for us to have 1, or it's possible for us to have 0. we have our axis of symmetry, which is also equivalent to the x-coordinate of the vertex. Last but not least, we have our y-intercept, and we know that the y-intercept is easiest for us to find when we are in standard form, but really we can find it in any form, as long as we make x is equal to 0 and we solve for it. So looking at this from a graphical point of view, to reiterate everything that we've talked about, finding the vertex, if we're in vertex form, then we can get it from using h and k. If we're in standard form, then we're going to use the equation h is equal to negative b over 2a to find the h value. Our third way is if we are coming from factored form, then we can use the midpoint equation, where we have the x values added together and then dividing it by 2. Both of these methods will require us to substitute the h value back into the original equation. So you can substitute any value of x or y into the equation for us to find the corresponding x or y coordinate. So this works if we are looking for the vertex. It could be looking for some point on the parabola. It could be looking for the x and y intercepts as well. For the y-intercept, we know that x is always 0, and we can substitute that into any form. As for the x-intercepts, it's possible that we have 2, so we always have to take into consideration the one side that is more positive than the axis of symmetry and the one that is less positive, more negative than the axis of symmetry. Now there's 3 different ways for us to solve for the x-intercept. The first way is we can take the square root if we're doing it from the vertex form. We're going to make y is equal to 0 first, of course. So use the square root from vertex form. A second way for us to find the x-intercept is to factor. If we factor and we make each bracket equal to 0 and solve, we would get the x-intercept. Third way is to use the quadratic formula, where we have negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, so that is it for the summary on problem solving and quadratics. Now you're going to use all of this information and apply it to different scenarios.